okay then. So we went to the kitchen, we sat down, he was just like doing this thing, this. And I was like, oh my God, this is not happening. You know, I remember feeling so just like out of my body experience and just very out of body experience. And then I only remember him saying one thing. That's all I remember, because I think I kind of blocked it. He just said, I know you're a little bit nervous. And that's all I remember.
Hello and welcome or welcome back. My name is Frida Weisel, and on this channel, I explore various aspects of Jewish life, New York City, history, Yiddish, and more. Nearly 15 years ago, when YouTube was fairly new, this woman went viral. This is Rebbetzin Rivka Zellwig, who is now also on Instagram. Also, there are other funny characters in the mix. Today, I'll be talking to the woman behind the Rebbetzin and the comedy, Danielle Jacobs. Hi, Danielle.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm a little undercover now, so, you know.
You don't want your Rebbetzin identity to be known.
You know, I don't want to scare anyone away yet, you know.
Is that your way of bringing people into the fold by
basically I meet them and like this, and then I'm like slowly, you know, bring them in. Yeah, bring them in, you know. But first, you know, you have to go down in order to go up.
It always cracks me up when you laugh, because I watched the comedy bit so many times and you have that laugh.
It has to be Bitsnias, though. Only Bitsnias, you know.
Okay, so now I'm dying to know your story, because clearly from your comedy, we know that you're very familiar with Orthodox Jewish life. I don't know anything about your life story, Danielle.
Okay, where do you want me to start? Once upon a time or after upon a time?
Let's start with, where did you grow up?
Okay, so I was born in Melbourne, Australia.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you don't have an accent at all.
I'm an Aussie. Well, I lost it through the process. So I moved a lot. I moved about 27, 28 times in my life. So the first move was from Australia to Israel, and I still had my accent. And then when we moved to America, when I was about 14, then I went to high school in America, and that's when my accent kind of faded, because I kind of was just like, you know, mimicking my peers so I could fit in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now I wish I didn't.
What would you get out of the accent?
I could still put it on, you know, if I need something, or like if I feel I want to get a freebie in the bar, you know. So yeah.
Well, you get a freebie if you have an Australian accent?
I feel like if you have an Australian accent, people are nicer to you. They're like, oh my gosh, I love her accent. Where are you from? I'm like, oh my God, really? No.
Really?
Yeah.
I should work on it. Okay. But you do other accents also.
Yeah.
You do really funny Israeli woman.
I couldn't do this because my mother is Israeli. So even though my entire life she talked to us like this for the thanks God, you know, but and I keep saying to her, Ma, lama את לא מדברת בעברית? She's like, I am talking how I am talking. I want you to learning the English. So I learned in the English, you know. But yeah. She actually, my mom was out of Israel more than she was in Israel, and she still can't get rid of the accent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So is your mom from? Can I ask? Is your mom Orthodox?
So basically, I wasn't born into a religious family. My dad is from Poland. He was born right after the Holocaust, and my grandparents moved to Australia. He didn't even know he was Jewish till much later. That's another whole story. They didn't want to tell him. Yeah. And then my mom grew up in a very Masorti house, which is like not religious at all. Just kind of like, you know, they would do like the Chagin, a little bit here, there, drive, whatever. There was no religion whatsoever. She went to the army. She was in the Air Force. And then my dad actually flew to Israel when he was, I think, like 20 or 21 for birthright, just to see what Israel is all about. And that's where he met my mom. Crossing the street, they met, and
Sweet.
And voila. And then they moved to Australia, and that's where I was born. And then we moved to Israel when I was about 8 or 9. I had a brother at the time, but my brother was born in Israel because in between we went back to Israel for like a year, and then we went back to Australia. And when I was like about 9, that's when my father decided we're becoming religious. So it was a very, very fast thing. It went from nothing to my father became an Amshin of a Hasid.
Wow. Your mother was okay with it?
Both my parents were very spiritual. And so they both, my mom would just like daven. She was praying a lot. She was, she's Sephardi. So she's like, my dad is Ashkenaz. So he took on the role of more like the strictness of everything and taking it to the extreme a little bit.
What does it mean to be an Amshin of Chassid? Is it like a specific flavor?
Amshin of a Rebbe lives in Beit Vagan. That's where we moved to. We moved to Har Nof, and then we moved to Beit Vagan. So the Amshin of a Rebbe lives in Beit Vagan. And what does it mean to be an Amshin of? To be an Amshin of means you can wake up late and daven like at 12 Shachris. No, I'm kidding. Like he's a very holy person. He's a little not the norm. And I actually used to go to his house a lot because I was friends with his daughters. So I actually got to see him like, close up and personal. He would just like pray a lot. I remember he used to eat like burnt toast. And one of the things, because I think the reason is that it's good for your memory.
Something like the opposite.
No, it is. It's good for your memory. Eating olives, too many olives is not good for your memory. But if you put olive oil in the olives, then it's also good for your memory.
I always knew that if you eat burnt toast, then it affects your memory and you'll forget your learning.
I doubt it because he wouldn't do that then. I never heard that, but maybe we should look it up.
We should. I mean, I think there's competing superstitions.
Yes.
Then
podcast number 2.
Was your dad enamored with the Amshinover Rebbe himself, or just?
Yeah, I think he just wanted my dad, who by the way passed away about a year and a bit ago. Allah Shalom.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. He was an extremist, so everything he did was all the way. There was no real middle. It was like, let's do this all the way, and so he took the Hasidus, and this was like something he really, he felt a part of it. There was a lot of singing, and he just, I don't know, he just loved the Amshin Rebbe. It's like the Amshin Rebbe also is known for his knowledge in health. So my father would ask him all these health questions as well, and he was just very, very into it. And my mom kind of went with it, I guess. We all kind of went with it.
No one complained? You and your brother were just suddenly dressing differently?
Right. So going back a little, when we moved to Har Nof, which was the first place we moved to, I was put right into a Beis Yaakov. And I had a major, major culture shock. I actually got really sick, like physically. And they really had no idea what I had. They took me to doctors and tests, and nobody came up with anything. And then finally, after I think it was like a month, again, this is to my memory of as a child, but I think about a month after, they realized that I had a culture shock. Like it was too much for me. I remember the moment that I was very taken aback, because back in Australia, I was in not religious school. And then I went to Beth Rivka, which is a Chabad school, for like a little bit. Again, we weren't religious, but there was I studied a little Hebrew, and it was a very proper school also. There was a lot, it was just very there's a lot of derech eretz. Everything was very and then all of a sudden I come to Israel to this school, and things are flying. I think I came exactly when there was a sub that day, and I don't know, stuff was being thrown around. There was no respect. I couldn't handle it. It was just, the whole mentality for me was so out of what I'm used to, that it kind of really took me by surprise. And it was very hard. But again, I was a very good girl, and I just and I was also, I remember as a child always being very spiritual. I remember even when I was little, 4, 5, 6, I would like write notes to Hashem. And then like when I was scared at home or whatever was happening, and I would fold it and throw it out the window and then close my eyes and be like, and then I would look and I'm like, oh my gosh, Hashem took it, like, by the way, he totally did, whatever. I'm just,
of course.
But yeah, I had a little bit of a tough childhood. So this kind of, I think maybe the spirituality kind of helped me feel a little bit of a sense of security. Before we moved, my parents got divorced and then they remarried each other and then they moved. And then so we became Anshin of Hasidim. We moved to Beit Lagan, and a couple of years later, my mom gave birth to 2 more kids. So there's my brother and I who are about 2.5 years apart. Then there's a 10-year gap, and then I have 2 more siblings. So by the age of 10, I was kind of like a second mom already. And yeah, we had like tough times, a lot of tough times. I had a lot of fun though. Like Israel is the best place to be a child. It's
you think
like,
so?
Yeah. I mean, then, we didn't have computers. We didn't have phones. We didn't have, Instagram or Insta anything or YouTubes or whatever. And we were just busy with being actually social, like social media of these days. Like we were actually, we used to like jump rope. We used to play, we called it gumi. We used to run around knocking on people's doors and running away, whatever, maybe that I shouldn't have added, but it was just like fun, like we just like had fun. Yeah. So that was good. Like that part was, kind of an escape from, what I felt at home. But at the same time, I got used to it. I had friends. I started going to Beis Yaakov, and I started, davening and all this stuff. And I just fit in. I'm like a chameleon. I can fit into anywhere I'm put, really. And that's a real blessing,
Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah. But before we moved to Israel, I was in acting school, it was called the Young Talent Time, the Johnny Young Talent School. And I was accepted already to the TV show, which was like a huge, huge thing. I was so excited. And then, we had to move.
Why did you have to move?
My parents wanted to move. That's how they were. It was like, okay, let's go next, And then we moved to Israel. We moved to Beit Lagan. We were there for 4 years. The kids were born, the next 2. And then one day my dad is like, okay, we're moving to Bar Park.
Was the Amshin of a Rebbe in Bar Park?
No, he was in Beit Lagan. But I don't know, for whatever reasons, financial, this, that, the Amshin of Rebbe said, we have to, we're moving. We're going to Bar Park. So at the time I was 14, and it was a really, really hard, difficult move because I was so already used to where I was. And it was, again, another change of everything, mentality, just everything,
Yeah.
So
did you go to Beis Yaakov in Borough Park?
I went to Machon for high school. Machon Beis Yaakov. Did you ever hear of it?
I had some cousins that were Machon, and we thought they were the fanciest people on earth.
I was very, very fancy.
I'm sure.
So
you're
fancy.
Always fancy, Danielle. Even when you're the Rebbitzin, you're fancy.
I know. It's the tiffle.
For a black... For a Rebbitzin, you always put in these little jokes that mildly scandalize me.
Yeah. I went to Mahon. And again, like it was very difficult. I didn't, it was all the time adjusting to new things, adjusting. My brother under me went to Cheder, like when we were in Israel, we went to Amshna Cheder, and then he went to Mavkach, and my other went to Skalen, and like they really got into the payas and the shaved head and the whole thing. My father was the gartel and this and that. He didn't really know Yiddish. He tried to, but he didn't.
Did he speak Hebrew fluently though?
My father, no, not fluent. No. He's Australian. So, I mean, he was born in Poland, but he grew up in Australia. So he was like, broken Hebrew, but it was okay. He didn't need Hebrew anymore when we moved to America. So
yeah. Did your parents stay married until the end of your dad's life?
No. They didn't.
No?
That's part 2.
I see. They seem to be real characters.
Yes, they are. They're good people. Everyone has their, I don't know. It's hard, like, my dad passed already. So I just, I hope he's in a better place. He had a very, very difficult childhood being the son of Holocaust survivors, but that definitely affected our upbringing. It's really true that they say, third generation Holocaust survivors. It's a real thing. And it really was a very difficult childhood. But, it just, I think as a child, I just had a very positive attitude and everything was like, this was my life. Like looking back now, I think I was a lot in survival mode and kind of trying to like push through. And then my personal escapes were when I was acting or singing or dancing or making people laugh or in the plays or whatever it was, that was my escape. And then my siblings, taking care of them and taking them places and like, yeah, that was my kind of like, and my friends. I was very, very social, had a lot of friends in school. So for me, high school was great. Like I loved high school because I was in the plays and I was in the dances and I was popular and it was fun, and whatever happened at home, I didn't really, focus on it as much because I was focused more on school. But if you ask everyone in school, they'd be like, I hated high school. How long your skirt is, how long your earrings are, are you sneezed today? Are you not? The whole whatever. But for me, it was like, that didn't affect me,
Yeah, because you thrive. By the way, I'm going to ask you to try to translate Hebrew words you use.
Sure.
Like words like tznius or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Like modesty.
Yeah. So should
Hebrew
I say?
or Yiddish. I'm just saying.
Okay.
We're just in the future.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So did you think when you were in Mahon in New York, I mean, you've been on a really unusual journey in your childhood, I think. Did you think when you were in Mahon that, okay, next step is I'll leave, I'll maybe go to seminary, I'll graduate high school, and I'll get married?
Well, I'll tell you what, because there was a lot of stuff going on at home, I was very focused, I think, on just being in the moment and having fun in school and like what I was telling you, and I wasn't so focused on what I was going to do. I also wasn't asked, like my parents never said, "Dan, what would you like to do when you grow up?" I don't think I was ever asked that question, like ever. They were also very busy with, Mashiach's coming, we're moving again. Mashiach's coming. My dad was very like that. And my mom's constantly davening. So, I will give her credit that I daven and know a lot of things because of, I guess, her davening. So I have to give her credit for that. But it was a very difficult way of living for me.
Yeah.
It's hard. I know we're being like recording, but it's hard for me to, I don't want to say too much and hurt anybody, in the process, because they're still my family, obviously, and I love them. It's just that it was really, really a very difficult time in my life. So
yeah, I hear you.
For me, my brother was, I don't know, maybe it's better if I don't talk for anyone else, but I personally, I'm just going to talk about me because I don't want to, but I personally feel like for me, the escape was high school and dancing and acting and always being in that kind of atmosphere that Hashem really gifted me with that. So I was lucky to have that keep me going. But there was later on, there was a lot of heartache with that. And I'll get to it a little bit later. But basically when I was in, I would say 11th grade, my dad decided, okay, it's time to get married.
Really?
Now, I did not get married in 11th grade, but my father was like, we're Bali Tshuva. If you don't do this now, we're not going to get someone good. And also, because of yichus and we don't have money and all that stuff. So we struggled a lot with money. That's why we also kept moving because we couldn't pay rent. So we kept moving to the next place and the next place. So, it was just a struggle. I remember one time I came into school and my friends just like kind of like weren't talking to me. And I was like, what's going on? I was like confused. And then one of my friends said, she goes, why didn't you just tell us your dad's a spy?
A spy?
Yeah. And I was like, what? I'm so confused. So they thought the only reason I keep moving so much must be because my father's in the government. I was like, now I can laugh at it. But back then I was like, what are you saying? Like, no, he's not a spy, I wish he was a spy, then maybe we would be in a better place.
a little cooler.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, so anyway, that's when for me stuff really started to affect me differently than it did before. I obviously I didn't want to get married. I was very young. I was in 11th grade. I was head of dance at the time, and my father would get really upset. And if I wouldn't want to do something, he would like yell at my mom. We should put her in a Hasidic school. We should have this. This is what happened. So then I'd be like, okay. I was like the peacemaker. I was like, okay. I'll. So my first bishow,
Your
what
date.
A bishow is, right? But it's not really a date because it was in my house, with a table. And actually the first one was not in my house. The first one was at this person's aunt's house somewhere in Borough. And there was like nuts on the table, like my Orthodox, unorthodox. Which one is it? Not the show, the movie.
The movie Unorthodox?
Yes.
Based on the memoir?
Yeah. So that, like that. But, I didn't shave my head. But like that.
I get the room, the awkward room.
The
You're
room.
sitting in.
There's like nuts and the, stuff everywhere. And
Seltzer. Mayim Chaim.
Yes, exactly. And then like the grandmother was sitting there and his aunt, and I'm not sure if his uncle, but my parents on either side of me. And then we're all sitting there awkwardly. And I'm and then this guy is like with the long beard, the whole shebang. And I wasn't like that, meaning my dad took it on, like whatever, but that wasn't who I was. My mom's Sephardi, like it was like a little bit too much pushed onto us, something that we weren't. Like we didn't even speak Yiddish or anything. My brothers did, because at that point they were in Lukach and Sklen and whatever other cheder for a while. So they were like fluent. One of my brothers even went to Nitra. Did you hear Nitra?
Yeah. These are real Hasidic Yiddish speaking.
Yeah, only people who know. So then he knew, he spoke it, but I just wasn't in that kind of mentality. My friends, most of them were like Hamish and Litvish, which is completely different than Hasidim. My character, the Rebbitzin, is not a Hasidic character. It's completely Litvish. And it's interesting because a lot of people don't know that. And it's so specifically not,
Yeah.
And people always ask me, oh my gosh, how do you even have this character? And you know what? I've never even had a teacher like that.
It just popped out of you?
I think that because I moved so many times and I met so many different people, and I pick up on things and accents and mentality because of my acting skills and my, I kind of put it together, I never went to seminary. So
no, we were watching, me and my aunt and cousin were watching your video, and we were talking about, you must have gone to seminary to create this character.
I didn't. I went to Machon, and then for like a few months I went to the Machon seminary, which isn't, it's in America. It's not like seminary. It was just like a half day kind of thing. And then I just went to work. So I never, but back to my 11th grade Bishow date. So
what did you talk about to this?
Honestly, you're going to laugh. Now it's really funny, but I remember everyone's like talking, and I was a little spaced out, and kind of like, that's when I connect to like God, I'm like, Hashem, I'm doing this for the peace, for the quiet, for Hashem, for all that jazz, And when they stopped talking, they grabbed the little grandmother came over. She grabbed me in one hand, grabbed him in the other, and she goes, okay, it's time to, maybe that's where I get the voice from. It just hit me. She's like, okay, it's time for you guys to, get to know each other. And, and I was like, okay, then. So we went to the kitchen, we sat down. He was just like doing this thing, this. And I was like, oh my God, this is not happening. I remember feeling so just like out of my body experience, and just very out of body experience. And then I remember him saying one thing. That's all I remember, because I think I kind of blocked it. He just said, I know you're a little bit nervous. And that's all I remember. Because he didn't really speak English and I didn't speak Yiddish. So there was nothing to kind of talk about.
Whose harebrained idea was this to put you two together? Your dad?
Yeah. My dad got a call from someone and he's like, oh, I have this guy from Tosh. Tosh is a big Hasidism in Canada. And he's, good for your daughter, blah, blah. So he flew in. And, my father used to get very excited about everything. And he's like, this is the one. It's from Hashem. It's Yata Dishmaya. Blah, blah. It's, again, it was the same. And then, I remember I was just like crying. I didn't want it, when I got home. And he's like, this is what happens, the Sahara. And it's just the Sahara, and it's just, then it gets to the whole thing in the house. And then my mom then I get like nervous because I just want everything to be okay. And then thank God something else comes up. You know what I mean? Like it's almost happens. And then he finds out this and he's like, no, it's not, and Baruch Hashem, I was like spared. So, wow. And then 12th grade, I had.
So he wanted to go ahead with a match and you essentially said no.
Yeah, but it wasn't like, I just said like, he's like, what, it's just the Zahara. You just think because your parents don't get along, you won't get along. And it's not true. That wasn't the reason. I just literally did not want to,
get engaged at 17.
Think I was like a romantic from the age of like 3. I'm like, always. So I was like, no, this is not what I signed up for. I really don't want to. And I didn't know what to say because like, I didn't want him to be upset, and it ended up not working out. Thank God. And then the next one came from New Square,
wow.
Which is another.
By the way, which is another very insular Hasidic sect.
Yeah.
By the way, as a teenager, did you have any interactions with boys?
No, I didn't even talk to a boy like ever.
Me neither. But do you feel like looking back, all that fun you had, or are you like, how is it possible I had so much fun without any boys involved?
No, I never thought that. I never thought how much fun I had without boys involved. I just thought, I think later on, it's like, oh, I wish I had those experiences. Like, I wish I had a boyfriend. I wish I was, I wish I was able to choose and to, but I didn't feel like, because I just had a good time. I'm telling you, I was so positive back then. Things have changed just a teeny bit. I kind of see the light now. But I don't know. I didn't think like that. No.
So what happened with the boy from Square?
Nothing. It was another one. He came to my house and I remember we moved again because we just kept moving. I think we moved like 7 times in 6 years just in Bar Park alone. So he came into the house. I remember he was wearing what they call a Bieber hat, which I know you know what it is, a flat Hasidic hat. And it was a shtickle tilted, like really cool. So he was cool. And I remember I was sitting there. I was like, okay. He was like sitting on his hands, I remember. And we're trained. That's the truth. We're trained to have questions of what we're going to ask. And they have to learn for 5 years and they have to go to the yeshiva. And then are we going to live in Eretz Yisrael? All these things are like, I don't know, they're like kind of drilled into you. Like, that's what's important, having kids right away. And he should learn and,
Yeah.
And I remember he just sat there and I said, and I kind of had the list of like what I'm supposed to ask, and I was like, and I remember my dad was in another room and we had like a code, like if I go like this, I don't like, he has to come save me. If I do this, it's okay, So he's like, I said, would you live in Eretz Yisrael? And he's like, personally, I don't give a damn.
That's what he said? Wow.
I was horrified because foul language was never spoken.
Wow.
Still not. But definitely not then, like, damn. What's that? And you don't want to live in Israel. So right away I was like, it was literally 2 minutes into the thing. I'm like, so my dad comes running and he's like, my dad actually he was a really good actor and extremely funny when he wasn't not funny. So he came in and he's like, okay, shine, whatever, something. And the guy's like, why? Just go, yes, it's good. It's enough for the first time, whatever. So that was that. And I was able to get away with it because I told my father what he said. So obviously it's not, appropriate. So yeah. So then I was spared that. And then there was another guy, another Hasidic character from elsewhere. And then, I think that was the end of 12th grade already. And then right after high school, not even actually, I'm not sure if I was still in 12th grade. Apparently the Gabbai of the Amshinover Rebbe had a shidduch for me. Now, the guy never met me in his life. He doesn't know anything about me. But he called my dad and he told my dad, this hush of a boy, this, that, and the other. And he's
important boy, by the way.
Yes, sorry, important boy. And comes from a great family. He was French, and he had Breslov background or something, which is a Hasidus. And he flew in to meet me. And here's the crazy thing. At that point, I think it was already after 12th grade. Some things are a little like my memory of all this stuff is a bit,
Yeah.
Not that it was such a long time ago. Obviously, high school was like 5 years ago. I'm just saying, like, sometimes you just forget,
Of course.
At the time, I had just become a makeup artist, actually. Because I wasn't allowed to work in Manhattan. I wasn't allowed, it wasn't appropriate to, I don't know why. It sounds so silly now saying it out loud, but it just wasn't. I wasn't allowed to get a license, even though all my friends did. But my father didn't think it was appropriate. Also, we didn't have a car, so. So he came and I had to meet him, and my dad was at the time said, "Oh, he's 22 years old and comes from a great family and blah." And he looked really, really young to me. I remember when he walked in, I said, "Ta, he looks like 18." Like he didn't even have a beard yet. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like snap hairs. And no offense, but I'm just for me. And I was just very like, it's so strange. And my father was like, no, he's 23, is this, is that. I was like, okay, he's older than me. Because I think at the time, 19. This was a tough one because my father already decided that we're getting engaged. Not only that, he decided that we're moving to Israel. And my mom had a baby. Also.
Another baby.
Yeah. So a lot of things happened that year. We moved again. My mom had a baby. So she had a baby when I was 19. 19 and a half. And so there were my brother right under me, who was in yeshiva somewhere. My siblings who were at the time probably like, I don't know, 10. Yeah, less 10, 7, 8, whatever. And then a newborn. And, and then this guy comes from Israel. And then my dad wants to move back to Israel because Mashiach is probably coming. So meanwhile, my father goes back to Israel to find a place. He always used to go before us for some reason. So he went back to Israel to find a place. And I was at home having to meet this guy, and I really didn't want to. And my mom didn't really know, what the right thing was and everything. And so I met this guy and I said, please, can I at least go in a car with him for a drive around the block? So I feel like I'm being taken out, I wanted to feel courted,
I see. The romantic story.
I did. I really wanted to feel like, even though he wasn't my look or anything, but I just didn't feel like I had a choice, at that point already. And I was really upset we were moving as well. And I had my friends, and I think I was just down,
Yeah.
So behind my father's back, my mom spoke to someone who was close to our family, and he's like, okay, it's okay if, I don't know, the doors are open, the windows are open, blah, blah, blah. So we drove around. I don't even know if people understand what yichud means. Like, you're not supposed to be alone in your room with a guy who's not your husband. If the doors are locked.
Father or son.
Correct. If the doors are locked or if the room is closed, it's just not appropriate, even if you're on a date. Maybe that's why Hasidim don't go out on dates, because, well, actually that wouldn't make sense because they go to restaurant. Okay, cut. Next. Start over. Anyway, so we went for a drive, and he was telling me he was French, and he's like, I'm so excited. My family is going to love you. It's going to be so nice. Did he speak English? המשפחה שלי כל כך אוהבת אותך, ואת תבואי לארץ. oh my gosh, it was just, and I remember just looking out the window and like, it's going to be okay. It's an, it's an Nisayon. It's a trial. I will pass it. I'll bring Mashiach. This is what's meant to be. You'll listen to your parents. This is, like I really kind of brainwashed myself in the feeling of being brainwashed, kind of. My dad always said, if you don't marry someone who's like with a beard, it's not the same level as someone without a beard. And like, he just like, and that's stuff that he was like fed from wherever. And, I just want to make it very clear. This is not all people are like this. My father was definitely an extremist. God bless his soul, but this isn't the norm. I don't even think in the Hasidic world, it's the norm, and I wasn't even in the Hasidic world. He was just an extremist and had this, so we basically almost got engaged. He already told my grandparents in Israel that I was engaged. And I remember I was crying and I got sick. It was almost like when I got sick back in Israel, when I was like culture shock. It was the same kind of feeling. I lost a lot of weight in a very short amount of time. And I remember it was a Friday and the guy called me to say Shabbat, good Shabbos. And I felt really nauseous. And before he called me, my mom answered the phone and I heard her saying, but she's not feeling well. And they said something like, okay, we'll give her an Advil. He has to go back to yeshiva in Israel. It's a bittul Torah, like a waste of time learning.
That he could be learning Torah.
Right, exactly. So the pressure was really on because he was there already for a week. And that somehow Hashem kind of helped me at that moment. And I remember he called me and I said, listen, I'm coming to Israel anyway in a week. Like, we'll talk then. I don't even understand why they flew him in. It was like, oh, you're going to miss your Bashert. I'm like, we're going to Israel in 2 weeks. Why do I have to, or whatever, it was a month. I don't know timing wise exactly, but like, why do I have to see him right now? Like, who cares, So we ended up going to Israel. He was like really shocked. He called my dad. I told him what I said. And he's like, why are we waiting? Whatever. So somehow we waited. I can't remember all the details, but we ended up moving to Israel and we moved to Betar Elite. And Betar Elite is another extremely, extremely religious place. And that is a whole other story, that whole time in my life over there. It was crazy. I mean, they had so many different crazy rules, and they had something called Vad Hatzniut, which is like, how do
the organization of modesty?
Correct. Where they kind of like make sure everybody dresses accordingly. And if not, you should tell on them. And just crazy stuff. I don't even want to go. It was a very small sect, but they just had a lot of power. And they really destroyed a very big part of my family later on. But basically, I moved to Israel, and meanwhile, my dad was there already. So he met someone else. And he's like, maybe this one's better. And their parents are Bali Tshuva also. And it was just crazy because it went from one extreme to the other very quickly in my life. So there was no time to, and that was actually my, my ex-husband now, but that was where I met him in Betar. And he was at the time in a yeshiva. He wasn't so Hasidish, to be honest, but he was like a little going towards the Breslov, kind of had pace behind his ear with a little beard, and his parents were different like mine. And we met a few times. Same idea, one time we were able to go for a walk. So we met like 4 times. We got engaged on the 5th time.
Did you feel a little more?
I just felt like he was the most normal from everyone I met. I knew he was a very good person. I had my list. He passed the test of all the questions. And that was it. It was a very difficult time. I just think that I was tired. I was tired, and I had enough. So
yeah.
So this is not supposed to happen.
That's okay. That's okay. Can I ask how long you were married?
25 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you have children with him? 2.
Mm-hmm.
A boy and a girl?
Yeah. Girl and a boy. My daughter's older, my son's younger.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a good run. Like,
25 years is
It
a
was,
run.
we brought up amazing kids, and we had a good run. Thank God he was a good person. And, again, at the end of the day, anything that you do that's not really your choice is always very difficult to handle. When you're told to do something, you have to do something. So I kind of went into it with this is going to bring Mashiach. Like, this is going to bring the Messiah. This is going to, this is what I'm meant to do. And this is it. Like, this is what God wants, and everybody who saw us together were like, wow, you guys are for sure, you're such a holy couple. You're going to bring Mashiach, blah, blah, blah. So you kind of go into this like spiritual out of body kind of thing,
And you were always such a good kid. Like, were you always thinking of like making your dad happy or keeping the peace?
Keeping the peace, always keeping the peace, making sure my siblings are okay when my parents fought, like always, protecting them. I was always like, it was scary. I was the oldest, so there was no one like really there for me. You know what I mean? And again, my parents had their hardships and they did the best that they can do, but it just affected me the way it affected me. There's nothing that you can do about it, it just affected me. And I just kind of went into things with just, okay, it's going to be better if, before I got married, my parents, a few times we almost broke off the engagement. We were engaged for 6 months. And a few times
that's long. Are you saying that
it's a very long time, especially in the Hasidic world? Not that I was Hasidic again, but it was a very long time. The reason is like I didn't have any friends around, and my friends would only be able to come in the summer or something, and we got engaged. Whatever it was, I don't know, like after the summer or something. So I wanted to wait. Anyways, we saw each other altogether maybe 10 times since the first time we met. And we didn't have, we spoke a little here and there. That was it. It wasn't like, it was like, it was tough. It was really tough without getting too into it. But I remember my dad saying at one point, it's better to get married and get divorced than break an engagement.
Yeah, that is the accepted view among Hasidim.
Is that really?
Yeah, that's what I always knew.
You did. So I'm not crazy. So he's not crazy. I mean, I guess he came from somewhere.
He heard it somewhere.
I think it's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. Like,
as far as I know, there are people who have done it. They got married in order to get divorced because breaking an engagement is considered a very harsh thing.
Right.
Like it's a very terrible thing. I don't know why divorces are somehow not as terrible.
Maybe because you're doing a mitzvah. Like, an engagement isn't considered a mitzvah, like a command. I don't know how to say it, like a commandment. Yes. Right. And then when you get married, you're doing a mitzvah. You're actually doing something that God wants you to do. So you're kind of tying the knot, which is a mitzvah. And then when you get divorced, it's also a mitzvah.
Is it a mitzvah to get divorced?
When you get a divorce, people say mazal tov. It's like a good thing. Meaning it's not a good thing to get divorced. But if you do get divorced, no one's going to... and then people do that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, like you say mazal tov, like it should be even with better luck. I don't know if it's considered a mitzvah, whatever. I know getting married is a mitzvah. So maybe it's better to do the mitzvah and then, I don't know. I think it's nuts. That's my personal opinion. But
anyway, you got married.
Yeah, we got married. And then I had a kid right away. Like, I didn't even blink, and I got pregnant. And then a few years later, we moved. We had a lot of stuff happened in Betar, like with my family, my parents. And one of my brothers kind of like started wearing denim pants, and that wasn't acceptable. And the VAD, this, I don't know what you're this organized weirdos, kind of really made my parents' life difficult, and my mom really had a hard time with it, and nobody was there to help. And also my father being Ashkenaz, my mom being Sephard, it's not very accepted. It's just, first of all, they put themselves in a place where they shouldn't have been. It's like, we didn't fit in there. We just didn't. But also, who are you to tell us if we fit or not? Like, at the same time, and it caused a lot of pain. My parents moved and stuff happened, and I ended up going to the rabbis, and And I was always scared to talk to rabbis because my father always said that they can like read your forehead. And I was like, I was always like, oh my God, really? What did I do wrong? And I was so upset that this happened to my family. Again, I'm not going into too much detail, but it was just a lot of things that were just too much that I was like, I took matters into my own hand, and I was like, how could you do this? And these so-called rabbis really shocked me by their answers, and I couldn't handle it.
What do you mean? What a lack of compassion? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, definitely lack of compassion. And just this VAD had like a newspaper, and every week there would be something else in the newspaper that was absolutely ridiculous. Like, do you know someone who has a cleaning lady who doesn't dress appropriately? Call now for the, like, what the heck? Like almost encouraging Lashon Hara. Like,
yeah.
Again, this was a very small sect. They were not normal. This is not the entire place. I need to make that clear. And this is not what happens everywhere at all. But this is my story and like what happened to my family specifically in this situation. And they put out an article after my parents. My parents separated again, like, and because everything was happening with my brother and like they weren't treated nicely, my mother couldn't handle it. So she just took my youngest brother and went to Australia. My father moved, I don't even remember where he moved, somewhere in Jerusalem, and I was still in Betar with my husband at the time and 2 little kids. And my siblings were sometimes by me. And then they went to my mom in Australia. Like, that's where we were holding at the time. My sister lived with me for a while, and I moved to Ramat Beit Shemesh, and that's where my sister was with me for a bit. After that incident, after my parents moved, and they put an article in their newspaper, and there was a picture of where my parents rented, and they made it look even messier than it was. And then there was a huge suitcase that said my parents' last name on it. So it was literally like Lashon Hara, and I lived there still. And actually, I didn't live there anymore. I had moved right when my parents kind of moved. I was like, well, I have nothing to do here after what happened with everyone. I moved, and then my friend called me and said, by the way, did you see the article? So it was right after they moved out, and I just moved to Ramat Beit Shemesh. I was like, I have to get out of here. And then I saw the article, and it broke my heart because I felt like, oh my God, they already left. Why? This is such Lashon Hara. This has nothing to do with Hashem. This has nothing to do with religion. This can't go on. And that's when I went to the major Rabbanim there, the ones that were like stamping on all these sniut, vad, ichlus. Like ichlus is like a congregation. So they were like the rabbis of the congregation to make sure everything was, going as planned. And I approached them both separately. And I really was so upset that I had that strength. And I said, this is very important. I need to talk to you. I remember one of them was just walking in the street, and I came over very gently. Also, I didn't dress like this. I was sheitel, covered. Like, I was completely religious, like, dressed religious. And they kind of like just brushed me off very rudely. And I was crying, and I just didn't care,
Oh.
And then the other rabbi, who was the Sephardi one, he wasn't home. So I wrote a whole letter. I was very upset. It was right before Rosh Hashanah, and I said, if you don't call me, I will never forgive you. And I put it on the door. And I ended up getting a phone call from his wife. And his wife said, oh, and this was in Hebrew, but I'll say it in English. She's like, oh, I see you're very upset. What's going on? So I told her the story. I said, my brother starts wearing denim pants. My mom's struggling with it. He brings a dog home, which is obviously not allowed because it's not a kosher animal, right? So in these type of places, you're not supposed to have dogs. So she's walking the dog out. She gets spat on by some Hasidic dude who just walks by. And she just felt so she didn't know what to do with herself, And then after they leave, you just put this picture up for everyone to know, like, what, for what? Like, that's Lashon Hara. That's literally not allowed, So she kind of hesitates. Then she's like, my husband is an up-based in, like, he's a
head of like the rabbinic court.
The rabbinic court, you can take them to court, like Jewish based in. I'm like, your husband is one of the people who signed. Like, he's like, oh yeah, he's not part of it anymore. I was like, so confused. And then she goes, but I have to say something. If your parents see that they have a son who doesn't really belong in such a place, then maybe they should have moved somewhere else. And I said, 1 second, if Avram Avinu moved here, would you tell him to move? So she goes, oh, don't compare yourself to Avram Avinu. I said, well, don't compare yourself to God. Avram Avinu had a really bad son. His name was Esav, in case you forgot, like, and she just went, no, that's when she said to me, oh, you can take them to Beis Din. And then I was like, I can't do this, and that was it. I finished the conversation. And that was a very difficult time in my personal life. It really kind of set me back to what the heck is happening. And then at the same time, when my mom left and my dad left, I decided that I'm going to move to America for a little bit, just to change the whole Israel mentality for me. I found very hard, everything black and white and religious, not religious, like who cares? I couldn't deal with that. It's much better now, I think, than it used to be, but at the time it was intense. So we moved to Far Rockaway, and then at the time, like I think right before we moved already, actually, my mom just left religion, and my dad just completely, just like that, overnight. My mom took my brother, chopped his face off, walked into McDonald's.
Wow.
And I think that it didn't digest yet until she came over to me once, and it was a Friday, and she was dressed in pants and her hair was out. And I was like, it was just tough. Yeah. And I think that time in my life, after things kind of hit me, and I was in America at the time, first of all, right away, I went to look for a job. So I was a fitness instructor as well. So I became a fitness instructor. I was a makeup artist, which I was doing. And then I kind of like dabbled out of it. I became a fitness instructor, and I was working at a gym. Right away, I looked for a job. Then right away, I found out there was some kind of show. So I went to try out, and I got into dance. It was very difficult because back in Israel, which I didn't tell you the whole entire part, which is so important. This one, it's not like an hour. It's just such a long story. I have a crazy story that happened to me in Bet Shemesh that really, really shook my world after my parents left religion. It was right at that time. I was in a really big shows in Israel. I'm not going to say what and which things because I don't want to mention any names, but basically performances, like really big ones, like in dancing, acting, big stages. Like they would take musicals and Broadway shows and do the same exact thing, but for women. And it was like, you're talking about like 6, 7 nights, 1,000 people a night. Like it was a big deal. We had like real recordings and it was very, very professional. And I felt almost like this is right after we moved from Betar to Bet Shemesh, and right at the same time, my parents kind of left, right? So I knew they were going off the derech. I didn't really focus on it too much. I was kind of focused now on like, being religious, but also doing what I love. And this was the time in my life where I felt like, wow, I can do this, and I feel appreciated. And they were like all for what I was doing. And they were like really kind of like picked me up. But unfortunately, they stabbed me in the back. And one of our performances, there's always that little group of people that are either jealous or bullied or are fat and ugly. I'm sorry to say, but a lot of times it's those people. They always think, oh, the pretty girls are mean and the ones that are not are just so nice. And it's not always that way at all. And they were just nasty. And they went and complained that I dance like Michael Jackson, which is a huge compliment to me. So, but, and then they went to certain Rabbanim, and then these certain Rabbanim were upset that they didn't get asked to give a kosher on the show. It's so complicated. It's a little hard to say in such a short amount of time. There's a lot of little things to it. And because I already worked with seminaries before, doing dances for seminaries and choreographing, I've choreographed my whole life. So I know I knew the gist. So the minute they took me as the main actress and dancer, I already knew what happens. So I already said, before we do any of this, I need you to approve the dancing, to approve whatever it is. If you don't like the shoulder this way or that way, like whatever it is, do it now. Get your rabbis and rebbitzins, because once we start practicing and we're doing this for 3-4 months, you can't change it on me and start to, and they're like, laughed at me. They were like, oh, Danielle, don't worry. We have our own people and we know and whatever. It's amazing. And I showed it to them. They loved it. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And then these people complained. And then they came to me and they said, Danielle, you have to change it and we have to take this out and that out. And at that point, because so many things happened in my life with those things, and then my parents, and I was so fed up and so deeply hurt that I just felt like, as a religious woman, I cannot shine in the department of acting, dancing, singing properly. Like there will always be something that I do that's wrong. Like there's never an escape. It's always like, don't do this, don't say that, don't sing like that. There's always something that I'm doing that's not appropriate. And it's only for women, and it's just like, and I felt like it wasn't Torah. That's nothing to do with religion. It's just coming from it's coming from ego. It's coming from jealousy. It's not coming from a good place, And so many times in the past, I let that kind of slide. But this time I was so upset because I gave them the heads up on it. So this time I was like, I'm not changing anything. And we're between shows. And I said, and if you don't like it, I'm out. I'm out. And that was a huge deal because I was the main actress. I was the one doing the dances. Like they don't have a show, people paid. Like there's five more shows coming. So they were like, Danielle, please, da, da, da. It took me a minute. I just kind of calmed down and I was like, okay, I'm going to change a little bit and bring your rabbis and your rebbitzins to come see it. So we had to show it in front of 3 rebbitzins, the dance, I remember. I told all my girls to just do shaftamayim, just the grapevine, like whatever it is, don't move your shoulder, don't move your neck, don't look the wrong way, And it was very humiliating. They were like whispering about it, kind of like, just it was not a good feeling at all. And then when the actual show came, we did whatever we did before. Like I wasn't gonna, And then after the show, I was actually working at the time at a gym, and one of the people who was in charge of this show took over the gym as well. They were very wealthy people in the community and they loved me so much and they're going to elevate me, blah, blah, blah. And they ended up firing me.
Is that why you ended up in Far Rockaway?
Yeah, I couldn't take the backstabbing. It was beyond, like I couldn't handle it. People were very upset for me. It was a big deal.
Do you carry hurt over feeling like you couldn't self-actualize at these opportunities, that you couldn't, like you say, shine fully?
Yeah, of course. I couldn't shine fully. There was always something, there was like, most people were like, wow, that was amazing. It's great. But it's unfortunate that the small little people that are jealous or envious or whatever they are, they're the ones that are able to bring you down, because so much gava is there, so much pride and jealousy, It says it in the Torah, the pasuk is, Hakin'ah motzia et ha'adam min ha'olam. Like jealousy can take a person out of this world. Like jealousy and envy can destroy, and that's why, as Jews, religious Jews, we have to really work on those things. Like there's always something to be jealous of or envious of, but like you have to know your place and how to control that, and how to, to know that everything's from Hashem, and whatever you're supposed to get, you'll get. And like you have to keep navigating through those things. And I keep navigating through those things with my own, my own stuff, but they really like destroyed my will. Like they really hurt me. So I moved to Far Rockaway, and then my parents were completely not religious. And not only that, but my father...
Your dad also?
Completely not religious. And then my father calls me one day and he's like, oh, just because they have beards doesn't mean they're religious. I remember that sentence specifically because I literally hated beards, and I ended up getting married to someone who had a beard because that's what my father said. And I wanted to do the right thing. It's just crazy.
Wow.
It's just a lot of little pieces that are just,
yeah.
Little.
I thought you preferred beards because you didn't like the 23-year-old boy who didn't have any beard.
No, he had a scraggly little thing. You know what I'm saying? And obviously I preferred it because I ended up getting married to my ex who had a little, at least he had a beard somewhat
Got
also.
it.
But I'm saying like, I didn't want anyone with a beard at the time. Like now, you know, everything changes with time. Now beards are cool. But also it wasn't like a nice, you know, whatever. That was my preference. But it was just a symbol to me that was very unattractive because of what I've gone through, you know. And
yeah. It's amazing how your dad seems to have gone on this like journey, and you see this happening with eccentric parents, I think, especially eccentric dads, where their children just tumble along with their whims, and the children end up carrying so much trauma as a result of being taken on these extremely unusual life journeys.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, to make it even crazier, he became religious again. So
Wow.
I mean, this story is kind of never ending. He ended up becoming religious. He moved. My parents got divorced. He moved to Canada to the Tush community, and he lived there until he passed away. So I didn't see him for about 16 years. Like our relationship was, you know, I was always kind of like his therapist, and I just couldn't. I just wanted my dad, you know, and I didn't really have that from my perspective again, you know. And anytime I would talk to him, it was always like it just ended up bringing things up, and I didn't feel, he just couldn't do it, you know. I'm sure he loved me, and he just didn't know. Again, it wasn't his fault. He had a horrible upbringing. He just didn't know how to father, you know. Of course, all of my siblings have different views on that and how they felt, but none of us spoke to him really. Just my brother under me, it was amazing that he even spoke to him after what he went through, but he was in touch with him. I wasn't in touch with him anymore. Like I was for a while on the phone, and then it got too much, you know. But then right before he passed away, when I got a phone call that he was in the hospital and he's really not doing well, I ended up flying to Canada. And my brother right under me met me there. And we were with him for a week. So it was the first time I saw him after 16 years. He was already on a respirator, but he could hear us. So we would, you know, sing to him all the songs we used to sing on Shabbat, whenever we sang. And I massaged his feet because he used to love that. And he literally died while I was holding his hand. And told him I forgave him.
You must be glad that you had that at the end.
I'm happy I went. It didn't give me closure. Like people are like, oh, it must have given you closure. It didn't, because it's not like he said anything. He didn't say, I'm sorry. He never apologized. He never really took responsibility. But I also really do forgive him. I do, because he just had his own hard life, and he just didn't know how to be, you know. And he had those moments that he was good, you know. But so yeah, my mom still, you know, my siblings all moved to Australia like a while back, like going back, because there's a lot of, when I was in Ramat Beit Shemesh, my siblings, my sister lived with me for a while. I sent her to school by me, and then she moved back. You know, she was religious by me for a bit. Then she moved back to Australia, and so everyone just left religion.
When did you leave?
I didn't leave religion. I took my wig off. I went to therapy for it. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to burn in hell and my kids were going to be okay. And it was a long process, but I think it, of course, also affected my marriage and certain things, you know, which again, I'm not going to get too into that. Like it just, I just felt basically like I was put into this thing and had to do stuff that I was told without feeling what I want to do. And even though I was so spiritual, and maybe if we met in a different way, we would still be married. I don't know, but I'm just saying everything was just put on me. This is what you're doing. This is what's happening. There was no me. There was no what do you want to do? How do you, I was never allowed, like, I don't feel like I was a child. I don't feel like I experienced things. I don't feel like I was able to, I was busy taking care of the kids or moving again, or making sure there's peace in the house, or, kicking my brother under the table so he doesn't sneeze, so my father doesn't get mad. Like, it was just this constant survival mode. I only see it now, years later. It's definitely, affected me. And then go through my own divorce, which was extremely painful, going through a divorce where you're married most of your life and then all of a sudden you're not. And then you find yourself in a different state, in a different atmosphere. Your kids are already older as well. So it's the leaving the nest syndrome. You're getting older. You're like, what the heck is happening? My family's all in Australia having their own kids. It's life changing. And then you have to find yourself. And, in that whole process, my son became very famous. So, so it's a lot to, that people don't really know, understand, and never will. But it's it's just a completely different life, and it's very hard. There's a lot of grief. When my dad passed away, I honestly, I didn't even really sit Shiva because I didn't feel much. And I wasn't in a good place in my own life. Like, I had just moved here, the divorce, it was like too much for me. I couldn't do it, so
Yeah.
I think I sat like one night. Also, I was like, what am I telling people? So I didn't have anyone to say because I just moved here. So I didn't really know so many people. So I didn't really tell anyone. It was a very weird thing. One of my friends flew in from New York to be with me for 2 nights, which was so nice. So I feel like I celebrated him in a different way. Yeah, that's, in a nutshell.
But now I don't even know where to go from here with this conversation, because there are so many things I want to touch on before we wrap up.
Yeah.
I guess you touched on your son, who's now a very famous, like you, he's very talented and
he's
has
super
huge
talented.
stage presence. Yeah. And you're also in his videos, right?
Some of them.
Sometimes.
Stuck myself in there.
What goes into being cast as the non-main character?
This would be really funny.
No, you're great together.
Thank you.
And you guys are like, you got the moves with the dancing. I love that.
I used to dance with my kids all the time. There's a couple of videos on my Instagram. Like, that was literally my favorite thing to do, is to dance with my kids, to laugh with them. I used to video them all the time. Like, my son was hilarious ever since he was little. So is my daughter. She's just more like a behind the scenes kind of girl, but she's a very spiritual, very strong, very smart. She did the army. She's a real pride.
The army in Israel?
Yeah. She left high school and went straight to the army. She was the only one that did that. Wow. And she's very much in Israel and very much, loves Israel and loves Hashem and the Torah. And she's become like more religious, but also super cool. She gives Dvar Torahs every week, and she inspires people. And she's really, really, really special. Really special. Thank God I have, with everything that I've gone through, I feel I'm really blessed with my kids.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Wow, I'm not very funny, am I? It's like uncomfortable. Like, I don't know how much I'm supposed to say, not say, but
no, I so appreciate
it is what it is,
sharing so openly. I feel so touched by your journey. I think your willingness to be vulnerable in your own life. I'm not talking about here when you're talking to me. I'm talking about your willingness to be to look back with so much compassion also for yourself, which I think it takes sometimes courage and a life journey to go through, to look back and to, especially when you're a good kid and you spend so much time worrying about everyone else. Yeah. I think looking back and worrying for your past self is also sometimes, you need to get to a certain place to get there.
Yeah. I'm still working on it.
Yeah. So did you raise your children from? I'm going to use the word from and not
Yes.
religious because
Yeah,
you did. I saw some.
Yeah, of course. They're both religious. We keep Shabbat, we keep holidays. We're, I just dress different. And, as a single mother, no, I don't want to call single mother because they had great parents, I'm not a single, I didn't raise my kids by myself. So I'm not going to give myself that credit. But, we raised them together and we did a great job together. But I will say that being single in this world now, I'm just getting out there now because there was first a lot of grief, which I'm taking me time to kind of just digest everything, is very difficult to keep Shabbat, which I'm doing.
Why
So,
is it very difficult?
I find it difficult because you're like in that in-between space, like I feel like religion and family go hand in hand. Very much, like you have your Shabbat meals, you're surrounded by your family, you're busy baking and cooking. And by the way, I was really, really good. Still am in the kitchen, like baking and cooking. I used to do sourdoughs and sell them and my health cookies and donuts and like just my dips. And like I have the Sephardi side, I have the Ashkenazi side, I have the
so
fish with the matbucha, the whole thing.
Because you did that video with a challah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it in your.
That one never rised. I don't know why. I think I beat it too strong.
Maybe you beat it a little too much frustration.
Yeah,
come
too
out.
much frustration, got scared, it go back down.
When I saw that dough, I thought maybe Danielle hasn't really baked so much.
Yeah, no, I do.
Because that
actually.
dough did look.
It looked a little schwach. Yeah, it's just a different lifestyle. It's like there's an alone factor, like.
Yeah.
I don't know. I also moved to a different state, and I also, because of everything I do, like, I manage my son now. So, we'll go places, we're doing this, we're doing that. So which is really a silver lining to everything in many ways, but I haven't really settled, I don't feel settled. So,
yeah.
And no one's at fault because is she here? Is she not? But like the invites or people, like, I don't know, people are just busy with their own lives. And again, I have friends here, of course, but I'm not in my zone that there's always like, I don't always necessarily want to be like, hey, I'm here. Can I come over? Like, just doesn't always feel good. And it's just different. And then, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just hard. It's a lot harder to be like, okay, what am I doing this week? Is my son here or is he by his father? And then what? And then should I go? Should I come? I'm still trying to figure it all out.
I hear you. I thought you were saying that it's hard to date, as in to go on dates while you're single, but meaning what you were saying is it's hard to be Shomer Shabbos and single because observing Shabbos is really about the family, spending time as a family. And when you don't have that family structure, it just...
Yeah. And my family is, I have one brother here, and then also he's very sweet and great. And I have him a lot of time that he's not religious. And then I have who knows, but I'm saying in my family in Australia, they're not really religious. I have one brother who keeps Shabbat. And of course, when I'm there, they do Friday nights. It's very nice, but I'm not there. I'm here, Again, I can go to people. I just need to make the moves more, it's just harder. Like a lot of people I think that are, my age in my situation where they have older kids, when you have younger kids, you have the kids and their friends' kids and you kind of mingle with that. But when you have older kids, you kind of have to find yourself again. And like, it's just, I'm going through right now, like, who am I? What do I want at this stage in my life? And like, because until now it was like family and the kids and whatever. And even when I wanted to pursue my acting or all that stuff, I always struggled with, but I have kids. I don't want to leave them. But also I'm religious. And what if I do get a part in a film and I have to do something that doesn't really fit being religious and I don't want to do that? Like, and now it's all of a sudden, it feels like I was just kind of left like this. And it's like, do whatever you want. And it's like, whoa, what do I like do with that? And I'm still super spiritual. I believe in Hashem. I believe, that everything happens for a reason. I just kind of wish he told me what it wants. You know what I mean? But It's hard. It's a struggle. It's a constant struggle. My big struggle now, my biggest thing now is really learning how to let go. We are not in control of so many things, and learning how to let go, and I don't know, a lot of different things, and finding myself again and doing things that make me happy. I just have to figure out what exactly that is and how to balance everything, how to balance adult children, how to balance their relationships and
dating
things. I'm getting there, but it's a new world, apps and all that jazz. And I haven't really touched the waters yet that much.
Oh, good luck.
Thank you. I get that a lot, and it's not encouraging.
Keep the faith.
Yes, keep the faith, because you ain't getting a guy.
I didn't say anything like that.
No, you did not, but I'm just helping you. No, I'm just kidding.
It is hard out there.
That's what I hear.
Where is it going with your acting, dancing, comedy career now that you're in a new stage in your life? Do you have ambitions?
Yes. So I'll tell you what, until now, before I moved here, I was doing my photography. I DJ'd. My ex and I used to DJ together. So we did a lot of bat mitzvahs, bar mitzvahs, all that stuff. And first I did photography and DJing by myself. And then he came on board because it was a little hard to snap and also like have the remote on the DJing thing and then turn around as the girl comes in. Like I knew all the things. I just, with a camera around my neck, doing, all the dances and stuff. So then he got involved. So he would DJ more. And I was like the MC and dancer and photographer. And so I did a lot of that. I did photography for 20 odd years. I loved it. And I did my fitness, personal training, all the gyms. And then when I moved here after like the divorce and everything, I kind of went into this, like, I need to heal. Like I went to Australia for a while as well, for a few months first to my family there. And then I came here and I just felt like I don't really want to do any of that stuff yet. Like, I don't know if I ever want to, but I'm just like healing. And then my son got famous and then somehow I became his manager a little bit and I'm learning that. But, that's just a small part. I need to do other things for sure, especially in everything I always love to do, which is comedy and dancing and acting. And, I don't know if necessarily stand up. I do sing.
Very nice.
Yeah, I sing. I need to work on it, but I sing. Yeah.
Wow. We're going to see you on screen, I feel like.
I hope so. That would be so nice.
That's going to be fun.
That would be so fun.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. But in the meantime, you have these plethora of characters. Before the interview, I was watching your cleaning lady who's like, Jewish people eat so much.
My name is Clementine. How are you? I'm good, thank you. Pero I like the Jewish people. They're so cute. They're eating a lot.
I really like Clementine. She's lovable.
She's like, you want to be her friend. My sister was like, I want a Clementine in my life. I'm like, I'm right here. She's like, no, not you, Clementine.
Yeah. And you have the Israeli lady.
Yes, I do. I'm working more on baking skills so I can teach. I have a lot of characters.
Less baking. Well, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Danielle, I am going to link your Instagram account and I guess also your son, since he's famous and you're his momager.
Yeah.
Is that what you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're connected to that project as the manager.
Yes,
and anything else as of now? And also your YouTube, I'm going to link.
YouTube. Sure. I mean, I'll tell you the truth. I don't really I'm good on Instagram somewhat, but like all the other platforms, this is when I feel like, wow, you're really, really getting old. You know what I mean? It's like my son, I'm like, how do you do what? Sweetheart, can you help me with the bucket? Like we used to do to our parents. And then they'd be like, I'll be like, Ma, you just have to do this and this and this. She goes, well, Danielle, how do I, what's the Googling? What, That's where we're at.
Yeah, it did take us like a few hours to figure out the
I have Instagram for my photography, but I never like developed it fully. Like right now, my So Danielicious on
Yeah.
Instagram is literally just what I do. Even TikTok, like I started a while ago, COVID. My son and I used to do all these funny things. I did it on my own as well, like because we were so bored and we would just do like stuff all the time. But I never, I don't even like going on TikTok because I find it such a horrible platform. But it's a great platform also, So I have to develop that. So it's a lot of work to do in me in high tech. We've discussed this before the audience came on how good I am with high tech.
We did have a lot of fun.
We did. We found the lighting. I think it's a little yellow, but it works.
We're matching. At least we're the same. Yeah. Gradient approximately.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Danielle. I love talking to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thank you to the viewers on YouTube and the podcast listeners. And bye-bye.
Bye.